Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening and welcome. A special welcome to our residents of Stratford and beyond. So thank you very much for being here. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Councillor Hunter provides his regrets. Let's begin with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the city of Stratford is positioned on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Neutral and the Wanderers peoples. As we gather, we are reminded that the city of Stratford is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples today. We acknowledge that Stratford is situated on land that was shared between the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Neutral and the Wanderers peoples. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live, work, and play on this land. Before we pause for a moment and reflect, let's remember former councillor Carrie McManus. Carrie served from 2010 to 2014 and 2014 to 2018. And she was also a great educator. I was blessed to both teach with Carrie, and then have an opportunity to be her principal as well. So as we approach her celebration of life, the flag will be lowered from May 1st to May 4th. So let's take a moment to reflect and think about Carrie, her family, and loved ones that are left. Thank you. Let me state the respect and Stratford statement. The corporation of the city of Stratford is committed to providing quality service to all members of the public, council, and our employees. Our goal is to promote a safe, healthy, respectful, inclusive, and positive environment. We have a responsibility to treat people with respect by creating safe and respectful spaces. It is the city's expectation that all present will be respectful. Madam Clerk, the meeting is yours.
Through you, your worship. Item 2 is declarations of pecuniary interest. Are there any declarations, and if so, please state the general nature thereof.
None noted.
Item 3 is delegations, which are all listed under item 4.1. Moving to item 4, orders of the day. Item 4.1 is the Grand Trunk Renewal Project Workshop Series update and the April 27th report introduction and recommendations. As noted on the agenda, the Chief Administrative Officer will provide a brief overview of the report.
Thank you. Thank you, Council, and thanks for the public that are here this evening. So I intend to be very short this evening. As everybody's aware, we've had a number of workshops over the last several months talking about the Grand Trunk and next steps. So the point of this evening's meeting is to have the public say in regards to delegation. We've got several delegations that will speak tonight, so that's why my comments brief. And the intent is there's no decisions being made again this evening. The idea is we've gone through 3 workshops now, talking about next steps, talking about the city's financial positions. The recommendations, what we've done is we've provided with the agenda for this meeting a report, a very lengthy report that talks about everything that we've summarized over the last several months and what council is going to be looking at and providing direction at next Monday's meeting on the 27th of April. And those fundamentally, the 3 recommendations that are included in that draft report are to provide a $50 million capital contribution to a shared community facility to develop in partnership with the YMCA and Stratford Public Library. Secondly, an approach to downtown parking that integrates Grand Trunk site considerations into the downtown parking study currently underway. And third, to proceed with market sounding process to assess private sector interest in the development of the Grand Trunk site. And again, from there, we'll make some decisions, or council will have an opportunity to listen to the delegates tonight, and look at these recommendations and amend or pass these recommendations at the April 27th meeting. So with that, so we're happy to answer any questions, otherwise proceed with the delegations.
Is there any questions from council at this time? See none, thank you. Next item.
As noted on the agenda, there are several delegations listed, so we are seeking a motion that Ron Dodson and Chris LeBerg, co-chairs of the Stratford Arts and Culture Collective, Robert Ritz, Robert Verdun, and J. Marie Mitchell be heard, along with the individuals identified on the agenda or addendum, which I'm just going to pull up. Leslie Walker Fitzpatrick, Sharon Hollingwood, Sheila Clark, Stephen Landers, Tatiana Kalinowska, and Julia Schneider be heard, and that correspondence from Adam Gardner and Patrick O'Rourke be received.
Thank you, mover for that. Councilor Rebecca will move, seconded by Councilor Henderson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed to any, that's unanimous and carried. Just a few points here. As I call individuals forward here, a reminder that to go out the back door and come in through the side. A reminder as well, you have 10 minutes per delegation. We have 10 delegating tonight, which is wonderful. And the clerk will time and give me and you and I in turn will give you the 1 minute warning. Please stay to that 10 minutes so everyone has an opportunity to speak. A reminder as well, as mentioned by the CAO, no decisions will be made here tonight. We want to hear your voice. A reminder as well, we have two owls that are going to do their best to pick up your voice and project it. So make sure you speak loud when you're at the podium. So people in council chamber, outside of council chamber, and people viewing at home can hear you. So if there's nothing else at this time, I'm going to invite our first delegation, Ron Dodson and Chris LeBerg, forward, please, and thank you.
Well, good evening. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Thank you to council, thank you to the senior staff, and thank you for those of you who are art supporters and the general public in Stratford here. We're here tonight to talk about the Stratford Arts and Culture Collective and the needs of arts and culture as it relates to the Grand Trunk site. If you don't know what we're about, we were founded 10 years ago in October of 2016. Our mission is very clear, that we are here to speak for the 20-some plus groups that are arts and culture, almost all of the arts and culture groups in Stratford, and to provide them with a voice toward a site that is suitable for arts and culture performances and other activities to take place. We are a not-for-profit without share capital. And lastly, we do 2 annual fundraising events. We have done that now for, well, 2026 is our 8th year. Before we go further, I just wanted to tell you that what this is about a BHAG. If you're not familiar with what a BHAG is, it's a big, hairy, audacious goal. So our BHAG is to have a seat at the table alongside the Stratford Public Library and alongside the YMCA, both of whom are not only aware of, but they also endorse what we're saying tonight. We've been in discussions with them now for the last couple of years. We have a history of working with the city of Stratford. We worked on the Stratford as a Welcoming Community document. We also worked on the cultural plan. Both of those documents are vital to the life of Stratford, and we invite the council to see what the connections are in terms of alignment between the Grand Trunk project and those documents. We have also got a history of finding outside help. So we have we've done a feasibility study back in 2019. We did a planning study in 2025, and we've done a research study this month, and we don't have that one yet. It's just in its final draft. Those were done by Toronto consultants, and which we paid for, mostly out of our own pockets, some with grant money. So what we're talking about tonight is a need and an opportunity. It's a two-part presentation. Part one is going to outline a little bit about the need, and part two will outline the opportunity that we have through committed collaboration. We thought it might be interesting to look at Stratford 50 years ago. Picked 50 years because that's the year that I came to Stratford. Chris came 5 years later in 1981. And these are some of the things that we found that have changed. The population obviously has changed. It has gone up roughly 25% in that time. The demographics have shifted quite a bit. The median household income in Stratford has increased. We have much more industry and retail. City boundaries have expanded, subdivisions have been developed. There are lots more recreation facilities, basketball courts and baseball diamonds and soccer fields and you name it. And all those things are important. City has worked on large projects before. Market Square is a good example. The Rotary Complex is another example. And CERC back in the 1980s. And in that time, we've had 7 mayors and 19 councils. Trivia. So what's changed in Stratford's arts ecology in that time? Well, first of all, the organizations, none of the organizations, with the exception of 4, were around 1976. None of today's present organizations. The exceptions are the Stratford Concert Band, the Gallery Stratford, the Kiwanis Music Festival, and of course the Stratford Festival. So that tells you something about how things have moved forward in the arts community. The number of artists and the number of supporters, the number of audience members, the number of sponsors, all kinds of things with relation to arts and culture have changed. We have new art forms, website designers, podcasters, and so on. We have, because of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, we have a big change in how we treat Indigenous artists. Technology has changed for lighting and sound and media. We now have more retail support in the city. I think about businesses such as Long and McQuaid or Michael's or Our Story and other galleries in the town. And all those things have significant economic impact. And we also have, as I've mentioned before, the Stratford Cultural Plan. It's an excellent document and bears very highly, as I said before, on what we're doing. So that leads to the question, what's not changed? Well, what's not changed is the need. The need being for a modern, accessible, multi-use, mid-sized venue for community use. We're not talking about gold leaf and Italian marble here. And we're not talking about tourism development. We're talking about what's good for the citizens of Stratford. And I want to make that extremely clear. So in terms of performances, gatherings, social wellness, and learning opportunities. We have to also get over that sense of, well, Stratford has enough arts and culture. We have those 4 theaters. Folks, we all know that they don't belong to Stratford. They belong to the Stratford Festival. And they are very great facilities. They're wonderful assets. They bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. But we are underserved as a community in terms of arts and culture for our own citizens. So that's the need. Now let's look at more detail here. As I said, our BHAG is to build a space that is mid-sized, not large, but maybe 400 seats or so, that is flexible. It can be used for a variety of purposes, not just performances, but also for the Y, for the public library, for the city of Stratford, for other people and other organizations, service clubs, what have you, conferences, et cetera, that is collaborative in how it is built and how it is managed and how it is maintained, that is efficient, so that there are green possibilities within it. And the money is also efficiently used. That is affordable for the arts and culture community to use. And that is, last of all, future forward. It's something that's not looking backward and we're replicating something that no longer is appropriate for Stratford in 2026. We're looking toward 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the road. We've put a name to this location just as a working title. You don't have to use this. This is just because we need something to identify of the center. And it's what we'll be referring to it as we go along here. The vision, what's behind all this? 4 things. First one is lifelong learning. The second is the cultural economy, then health and wellness, and civic life. And each of those things is very important for the collaborators that we're looking at.
1 minute.
Okay. The 4 collaborators, as we've said before, we have the potential of looking at those groups together, having year-round access to the site, up to 160 to 200 activities. There is economic impact. I'm going to slide through some of these. That is important. Job creation, visitor spending, local spending, etc., etc., etc. I'll skip that one because we don't have time. But the opportunity is, this is the opportunity of a lifetime, of a generation, of perhaps more than one generation, to do something right, to do it well, to be something that we can be proud of. So we are looking at now these possibilities. Why do we need it now? I'm going to run through these quickly as well. You'll see in the package that you have that they are all listed in part 2, pages 4 to 6. Are there precedents for this? Yes. In Calgary, in Hamilton, sorry, not Hamilton, in Halifax, I meant to say, in Kitchener, in London, quite a lot of them all over the country. This is a model that we've found that is quite good to consider. Meadowvale Theatre in Mississauga. You might say, well, Mississauga's got a lot more people. You're right. It also has 6 municipal spaces for arts and culture to happen. But this is a space that has a wraparound kind of feel to it that is shared space and a central core that can be used for performances. We're not saying that we can pick it up and move it to Stratford and plunk it down Grand Trunk site. It's simply a place to start and to show you that we've done our homework. So we are committed to these 4 things, to focus all our resources: cash, access to consultants, architects, theater designers, acousticians, planning and implementation, structures, co-creating, where are we here? And co-implementing a capital funding strategy, and revising and updating our own infrastructure policies and so on. One of those is that we have done a new advisory committee, and you'll see some familiar faces on that slide. They're all committed. They all believe in the project. They're willing to work. So, looking at the last slide, we started talking about the need. We added the opportunity. But the previous slide had need plus opportunity equals community growth, and that's not quite true. There's one element that's missing, and that's action. That's council. That's you folks. Because we want your support, we need your support, the community needs your support, and only then can we have community growth.
Thank you, Ron. And thank you for the package that you provided us with. Are there questions from council? Councilor 7, go ahead, please.
Thank you, thanks for your presentation. I'm just, so, am I understanding right that the act, or it's a space within the Grand Trunk Center that's sort of allocated, and then we would collaborate with fundraising, sort of, is that the goal, or?
All possibilities. Yes, we've been in discussion with, as I said, with the library, with the Y, and they see the need for this kind of facility for their programming as well. So the idea is, as Mr. Moran pointed out at the last workshop, is that in the coming months, there's going to be planning on spatial, who's going to be where doing what the governance is going to be, who's paying for the maintenance of the building. That's all in the next stage of the planning, and that's where we would like to see ourselves being a participant in that planning. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions? Councilor Wardle, go ahead, please.
Thank you, it's very good presentation. My question for you, do you have any like partnership or with the government? Like funding, are you expecting some?
Oh, where it's coming from?
In the package that you received, there are references to the kind of funding that we can access that is, but it's difficult, if not impossible, for the public library or the Y, or perhaps even the city to access. And we're quite willing to go out and create that capital campaign that includes grant applications to the feds and to the provincial government.
We can't go and make any of those kinds of applications without without written agreements from the partners. And also some level of design work of some sort. That's what they need to see to be able to review our proposal, any submissions. So we're a little ways from that, but we feel very confident we have the expertise in a theater architect, theater designer, acousticians and lighting and sound companies that can help us pull all the elements together. Come up with a very efficient and very affordable space for the community use.
Councilor Burback, go ahead, please.
Thank you, through the chair. Thanks very much for your presentation. I think this is an excellent idea to include in our community facility. I just had a question about the square footage. So you were saying with 400 seats, the estimated size that you would need with all the facility spaces is about 32,000 square feet. Does that include spaces that you would see as shared?
Yes.
Yes, that includes the share. So our rough estimates are 14,000, I think, for the actual auditorium and stage and some of the backstage spaces. The rest of that is made up of what can be shared spaces with the library and the Y, the washrooms, the coat rooms, the snack rooms, all of that, ancillary spaces are all.
And given the fact that none of the groups, let me put it a different way, that all of the groups need to have space, and meaning the library, Y, and us, it doesn't make sense economically or any other way to make 3 separate spaces. So finding a way to find the efficiencies in the site and in the planning and in the future planning, it makes a lot of sense to us.
Thank you.
Councilor Henderson.
In the mayor, so you mentioned this need for the 3 groups to have a space, right? How many days of the year do you figure you would need? Like, I'm just thinking if the library has their space upstairs in the 3rd floor, right? So
I think, Councilor Henderson, I think that's one of those things that will be worked out through the process of the planning. It's certainly, I mean, our concept would be that the auditorium seating, that part of it is fixed seating, and then part of it is retractable, so you open up that room to be a space where more activities can happen.
yeah, similar to the auditorium here.
Yes, if you could retract it, well, the seats get taken away and all of a sudden you have a big room, but now the technology, retractable seating, you just.
You, right now, do you know approximately how many, I don't know if you know this answer or not, but approximately how many days you're in a theater now?
No, because that's one of those things that the groups, we have had it in the past,
Right.
in earlier studies, but I think those studies were pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And
That's
that was,
2019 study.
yeah,
Okay.
so now it's changed. But I think the arts community is very excited that this is possibly this is going to happen, and there's going to be that space, and we've just started with 400 seats, we don't know for sure.
Yeah.
We'll just find out what everybody's needs are, including the blind and the library. Pull it all together and see. And it also makes the space available for road shows, dance competitions. I mean, that's where conferences, where a lot of money is made to help offset costs of the center. That helps make it affordable for the local arts groups.
Other questions? Councilor Bordeaux.
So Chair, I have a question for you. If you guys apply the fund for government, you guys apply for like library, YMCA and organization, that right?
Well, we would be able to apply for funding for the performing space. The arts space, if you want, the center, should start to call it that. But I'm not sure because we haven't had the discussions yet with the library and with the YMCA to figure out how that all might work out. Whether they apply for how much money and through what, it's a discussion that hasn't happened yet. We need your blessing first.
Other questions, comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jason. I believe our next is Robert Ritz. And just a reminder that 10 minutes does go quick to all our delegates. And sometimes the questions will suss out more of your presentation than what you have presented. So keep that in mind as you present, that the questions will draw on some of that information that you perhaps haven't gotten to yet. Well, welcome, and whenever you're ready, Mr. Ritz.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Like others in this room, most of you have all seen the slide decks that we presented over the last open houses. And tonight's meeting, it's not just about deciding the future of the GTR site, but for many of us here, it's primarily to determine the fate of the building itself. I believe that most people in this room share the same perspective as the ad hoc committee did, where we want to preserve as much of the building as possible. I feel the same way about it. That is why I went and put this proposal together that I call Phase A. Because this is the plan that the ad hoc committee was to move forward with, which was the renewal of the Grand Trunk building, including building designs and architectural plans. Well, we really didn't get that far, so I invested about 110,000 of billable time plus expenses of staff, illustrations, printing, videos, and all rentals to prepare the building designs and architectural plans. We presented them to 2 public meetings, open houses, and went through the project in very great detail. Thank you for members of council who met with me personally on this, and the ones who were at the site or at the open houses. There was 380 people in total, and 318 of them were there at least once, which is about 1% of the city's population. So it indicates some interest in this project. I think for people who were there tonight, or who were there, and those here tonight, are your true advisory body in the building's fate. I strongly suggest that it would be a very, very prudent of council to listen to these people, as they seem to own it. Work with them, not against them, move forward with this project we all share, where the building is the solution, not the problem. Plan B. All right. So basically, plan A is using the existing building, and plan B is not using the existing building. And plan A is based on public engagement. For plan B has largely been completed by a consultant the city has retained. In any comparison between the two, they should match. Right now, we have a project which is the entire building with many community facilities in it. And the other option is just 2, the library and the YMCA. And to have fair evaluation, what we're going to do with the site is that we should look at everything in both scenarios. So if we're going to go off-site, let's go off-site with everything that we're proposing to put into the building, or as the community asked to place into the building. This will provide a clear, transparent evaluation of comparable concepts and floor plans, that features everything that's currently in Plan A. As you can see here, this is our plan and it's fully developed. Full. No space left to do anything else, basically. This one requires a little bit more detail. When I looked at this, I blocked it out on our drawings to see where the rest of it would go. Sure. Yeah, so that's more or less what is being proposed. This is the parking area required for that. And we have this much land remaining. But even when I ran the numbers, if that's all the land that's remaining, where the 300 cars are currently parked there? What about the surge on theater events? Unless we go into the building for parking or tear it down, it's tight on parking. Again, if we're gonna build other buildings on the site, will they connect? Will they fit? And if not, fit there, where will they go in the city? In this case, parking, the site's extensive. My site is full of parking. There's 925 spaces there, including 300 for off-site parking. Plan A has a 68, this plan is a 68 space shortfall. The entire facility is at capacity simultaneously, unless the 3 large user groups only operate 3 at a time, make it work. Bottom line is, if you develop the building, there's no land left for further development. This is indicating parking numbers. I'm not going into details. The point is, bracketed numbers are the zoning bylaw. Old numbers are the previous zoning bylaw. What's interesting, new zoning bylaw actually has a lower parking requirement. And I, as an architect, find that the old zoning bylaw is truer to our needs, especially when it comes to facilities like 8 people for 1 vehicle in a restaurant. It used to be 4 people to 1 vehicle in a restaurant. That can really hurt your parking numbers. What I do like, and I'm glad to see it by the CIO and the team, is to come up with this parking strategy. Definitely needed, and I like that it's not for the entire, not just for the site, the entire city. If you look at undeveloped lands or developable lands around in the core, and that number is about the same amount of land that's on the core, 18 acres of developable land, plus there's the spaces above the stores, etc. Definitely move on this one. Thing is, what's going to happen is cars leave us. Well, if in this particular case, we have blocks of property adjacent to, sorry. So we have these 3 properties where we can build buildings in the future if we don't need the parking. And within the building, we have facilities of additional parking, plus along each side of the paths that go through the building. If you have a plan of Plan B and you develop the entire site and the only land left for parking is the building itself or the demolished building's floor, and you don't need that parking anymore, it's very difficult to build on that floor because it's very expensive to remove that floor. Again, further development on Plan B. And what I'm urging you to do before you make a decision on B, make sure you think big picture, the entire site. Think it through. Neither plan really addresses affordable housing. And the principal reason for that is that the land's too expensive. In order to have affordable housing, you need affordable land. At $1 million acre facility, it's not affordable. Affordable parking or affordable housing is better if it's located somewhere else. Big story for me is Scotiabank building, in that I see it as basically just an asset management. If you buy it, there's 252,000 square feet of vacant space in the city. Big chunk of that's the GTR building. Where if you develop the GTR building, we're down to 44,000 square feet. Police headquarters at the Y or the at Y or at Scotiabank. Their tax revenue on Scotiabank is $162,000 a year. That'll amortize a $2.4 million debt, which can be used towards the development of the development of the Y into a police station. Would not be prudent for council to decide on the purchase of 10 right without comparing purchase and repurposing of the Y, which should be reviewed with the same level of detail as you're currently doing with the Scotiabank building. Should be a fair comparable between the two before you commit, because if the Y works, it helps us long run. And this is showing how the Y can work. It starts out with 50,000 plus over 50,000 square feet of space with the first addition, which is right here, the garage and office space. And then eventually you can build an addition on the Downey Street side of the building. In the end, it has about 73,000 square feet, which is 50% more than what we need right now, which should push them well beyond the next 50 years.
1 minute.
I love it. Win-win on this, and that the bottom line is, if you buy that property for $4 million of the Y, that Y, the YMCA is going to take the 4 million and put it towards the GTR site. So 4 million is actually buying you 8 million. You know, because it's doing 2 for the price of 1. Definitely worth the consideration. Plus other things. I'm going to move forward. These are just concepts that you've seen in my report. No need to read. Being a developer is a big topic here. For this to work, the city has to be the developer. The building pays for itself as we are the developer. The profit, part of the building, portion of the building, finance the capital cost to build the common space, and the taxes to the property cost of the common space at no cost to the taxpayer. The rest of the building, other than the library, pays for itself. This was showing how, again, everything can work. And what's interesting about this, there is the theater that SAC wants, and the street goes along the perimeter edge, and everybody can enter and connect with the building. Well, what's my countdown? 10? You're okay. Yeah. Last point is the cost in this building. The buses, they make the building. O'Hare Airport, they spent that effect. It's free. Question is, will the atrium and the proposed library Y on the freestand site, will it have this kind of amenity? And if it doesn't, something should be accredited to the building for use in the building because it's already in it at no cost, and it is part of our history. Again, going back to, and then bottom line is collaboration between everybody. Anyways, thanks a lot, and the rest are the tasks which are on the report that are there. You're already in movement on them, so I appreciate your time. And again, by the Y, move forward. Please go into the Y eventually, but it gets the project going. And 4 million buys you 8, and you get the tax money to spend as well. Thank you. Thank you.
What's your word off of please?
Yeah, thank you very much for your commitment and vision for the redevelopment for the GTR site. Thank you. My question for you, I would like to ask, why do you feel so strongly that this project is really about Stratford story and not just another development decision?
Well, part of it's the career I have, play an architect, and got a boy, and I think it'd be a lost opportunity to. And again, it's all about the numbers, and I didn't get into the numbers tonight. I didn't flash through it intentionally. We got a time commitment, but I am working with PCL contractors that are assisting me. We have estimates from many construction companies that have for their particular components in the building. They're all very excited by the project. They're just, if Stratford could do this, it'd be wonderful. We did it, the numbers are in. We're punching through the numbers right now. And right now, we're still in market rates for shell structure at about $240 a square foot. And our garage is a little rich right now, but again, the garage fee basically paid for the rehabilitation of the existing structure, so it's running with the price of an underground parking garage, so $60,000 range. So, but that's particulars, but the reason for it is when I had the talent, I had the time, and obviously I had the money to help make it through, and I wanted council to see it because it would hurt me as the emotion comes. And letting it go without the fact. And I'm willing to let it go. I think we all are. I had some bad numbers and I ran by left. I said, hey, you might go sideways if Robert can mulch or divide properly. And he divided total cost against a small portion of the building. We're running at 800 square foot. When I saw that, I'm going, whoa. We're done. And I'm willing to accept that. And that's why I started with the opening point on the people in this room, the people that were at the open houses, they own it. And we get to that point, let them decide what to do to the building.
Other comments or questions from council? Councilor Seven, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I know you spoke to, you don't have specifics for the financials at this point, but are you able to speak to the proposed numbers in the draft report that put forward by city staff compared to like?
Well, they're two different animals. So I'm providing, much like a shopping mall, I'm providing spaces for stores to go in, but instead of stores, they're community facilities. And so we're gonna have a finished atrium or a finished concourse that you can walk through the mall itself. And I'm providing a shell with roof, walls, insulated. The community facilities have to drop in HVAC, electrical, flooring, any interior walls to divide up the space. And in fact, our current numbers do have skylighting. That'll be a pullback point. It's the first comment PCL made was, wow, 6 million in skylighting. But again, and that's all flex. So what I would really like to know, but you can just budget is about 40 to 50% of the building cost is the shell. And if I'm running around the 200, 250 range, and your budget's 650, then we're looking good. But again, I want PCL to lock that up for us. I picked them, the largest one. They accepted it. Thank you. As the largest construction company in Canada, give me some work, because the joke of architects is whatever price an architect says for what it's going to build, double it and multiply it by 2, and you might be close. So that's why I really trust myself, because I'm not an accountant. I'm good at the pictures.
Follow up, go ahead, Councilor Seven.
Just as a follow-up, I don't want to put you on the spot, do you have an estimate for when you would have that report back?
I was with them, we were working last week, I wanted the number for what that riveted steel truss was today, but we didn't get back to me. They're doing some research. Our goal is the end of this week, early next. I don't know if we'll make the 27th, because for me, it's been non-visual, it doesn't really affect the 27th, because the goal there is to push, or not to push, but to as mentioned earlier, supporting the library and the Y with moving forward. Not necessarily in the building or only on the site. I believe it's still open to either. Part of me being here tonight is to ensure the building isn't taken out of that formula yet, and to look it through and work it through. And I'm trying to encourage council to, after the work I've completed, and after PCL's comments, if we're in the game, then let's go next step forward with the building and the site, sort of comparing the two at the same time. Much like I'm suggesting with the Y and the Scotiabank building, you should look at the two of them, because the Y is such a key financially. You save $4 million by going to the Y just in that. Now the cost is, well, how much more is the Y to develop than Scotiabank building? So it's chess game, as I've noted.
Thank you.
Councilor Briscoe and then Berlin.
Thank you, Mayor. I noticed that the apartment building, and then having that be kind of offsetting cost factor was a really interesting, because obviously the city's playing a large role in being developers for social housing, but this would be kind of for market housing. Am I right that then the city being the developer would play like a landlord role in that? Is that like who would maintain ownership? I just want to clarify.
Sort of think I know what you just asked there.
Yeah, the apartment complex, I mentioned that the profits from that are kind of the revenue
Yeah.
that would offset. Would that be us being the developer as proposed,
Yes.
would put us in a landlord position?
No, you're not in the landlord position, you're in more land ownership. And being in the ownership position, you're definitely you're definitely as a rental. You're the landlord with respect to all the rental property we have as a corporation. So I was looking, again, the way I see this site being developed is a corporation, a development corporation, similar setup to Festival Hydro that the city owns, Black Council's at arm's length to it. Their mandate is to develop the site based on guidance by council, sort of ad hoc plus. And they are the people that retain the project manager and they watch it go. We need income on that building, or if it's affordable, we don't get the space. So I'm trying to find people who can afford to be there and want to be there. Help us as a community to use the building at relatively low cost, because it takes about 10 million right out of my costs, because it's covered by the apartment building, which is great, you know, because the entrances all show, and we're pricing right now escalators and elevators and 3 entrances. You know, we don't have any escalators, we'll have 6 after that's done. So if it's done, did I answer the question well enough? Yeah. There, but on that, just for the apartment building. Aside. PCL, we were talking about how I drew it, how we were planning to do it. They said just flat slab it, which was interesting, because flat slab then allows us the possibility of stacking. And the government of Canada is looking at assisting in any kind of prefab development. So that's something that would be researched later on that.
Councillor Burbeck, go ahead.
Thank you through the chair. Thanks for your presentation, and it's great because there's so many overlaps between what council has indicated that our vision is and that what you're presenting. So there are many ideas and overlaps there that are great. Like we're moving in the same direction.
Oh yeah, sure.
For sure. My question actually was almost exactly the same as Council Briscoe's about being a developer and how that would work with high-end housing. Because, you know, as a municipal corporation and civic organization, we're not really in the landlord business, so how that would work. But I mean, you've answered that question. And then my other question, of course, was numbers. So you're still working on the numbers. I mean, we do have a rough estimate, a Class D estimate from our report that we got, which, so I added it up to see like if we use the building site as it is, and I think I got these numbers right. For the 10,000 square foot, it would be 138 million. So
What's that?
138 million to build that community facility, 100,000 square feet. Within the existing superstructure. So I'm just saying that those are the numbers that we see in the report that's coming forward to us. So it's quite costly. So I'm just curious as to like financially.
Well,
are there any creative ideas as to how we might be able to?
Well, that's why I broke the building down into components. Like component pricing versus square foot pricing. So we're pricing square feet of eaves on the wall and drywall and paint lines and like square footage of popping and that sort of thing. So versus the general price for and we're doing takeoffs as well, because we actually have hard drawings. You can actually, you send the drawings out to the contractors, they're doing takeoffs, they're telling you how many square feet of X, here's your price, much like a real job. And that's why the pricing can be a little tighter. And but at 100,000 square feet, which is one of the options you had, it's $630 a square foot. It's what was proposed by the developers, 63 million. And our I have 91,000 square feet on the, and we have multi levels, but there's about 91,000 square feet on the not including the Y portion on the long portion. I should just not say anymore because my numbers could be off there without looking at the numbers.
And I appreciate it, I know you don't have all the numbers
The-
together, but it's just, it's
You'll see
very
in-
expensive,
in
so,
detail, and
Yeah.
to detail the numbers, like you don't want to lose anybody in a spreadsheet. And in 10 minutes, it would not be enough time,
yeah.
right? And I was gonna highlight the cost of the parts, but at this time, but I thought it would off. And the
Yeah,
first
thanks
part
for
of
the-
that question, Councilor Burbach,
Pardon me?
was, the first part of that question was,
It was more, I was gonna ask the same
Oh.
thing, Councilor Pacific.
yeah, okay.
Thank
The
you.
whole thing, look,
Yeah.
you are a developer now with your industrial land. You buy farmland, you service farmland, you sell farmland, very similar concept. We have a building, you develop the building and it's portions of the building. That's the.
Between that is we don't actually build buildings.
No,
Service
no, you're
the
not,
land and sell.
but you do develop industrial land and again, with this outside corporation, just like you don't sell electricity, but you do sell electricity indirectly.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Councillor McCabe, then Councillor Niger.
Through the chair, had lots of great discussions with you on this project, and obviously the vision for that site is appealing to a lot of people. It's an impressive superstructure to be in, but it's a very costly superstructure. I've noticed in going through all of the literature that has been published over the last 30 years on this site, the Borville report, which discusses the issue of similar structures of this kind in Winnipeg, Montreal, and Toronto are 20, municipalities are 20 to 200 times the scale of this municipality. What very much concerns me about the proposal is taking a look at the risks in this superstructure in going forward with it in a way that will possibly get us delayed in a very long period of time regarding the environmental pieces of the structure, but also the structure itself. And the one thing that we have spoken before about is this cost of this parking, which you have as an income stream, which I think is actually a negative for the city. I think it ends up costing us money to have that because it's not, we've got parking on that structure on the site right now that is free for the downtown core. And we're talking about a staff structure there with people paying for it. Well, why is that, do you think, key to getting the site developed? I just don't see the financial something.
Well, that's why I commented on the parking study, because that's gonna get into cost of parking and what people can afford to pay for parking. I know this Stratford Festival needs $25 a car for a show in 2 parking lots. And we don't make any on them for the downtown theaters at our parking lot. So there's a potential income source. We could think we can think broader on that and how parking your revenue sources is one of the few things that the city actually can make money on other than taxes, parking and renting property or parking as well. So that I'm suggesting we move forward a bit more with this. Councilor McCabe, I'm with you, as you know, on the numbers of expenses because I'm a taxpayer as well. And Brian Gold for me was never hurt the taxpayer. It has to basically I've always said it has to self-finance, work its way through. One of the ideas with parking, right? Let's just go quickly on how you can make money on parking. There's a lot of available parking spaces, but we only have 3,700 tourists here at any one time coming to the theater. Or a theater in the theater, so it might be a little bit more with spouses that are gillies or whatever. But again, there's only so many cars we can actually charge $25 a vehicle for. So that's sort of your limit is that, and it's a 60% show, and they're not all gonna drive, so it gets the number down to not a big number is one thing. So I've been checking that out along with everything else, and it's time for me to sort of shift it over to people the city retains for that. So, give me I'm sort of looking for the, I think it's worth the exercise. I wouldn't have gone this far. I'm not an idiot. May disagree, but, I do it because I saw that it happened and it can happen. And there's our ways to, and you and I, we're both in business, ways to make things quick and alter a bit to make it work. So bear with me, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, as a follow-up, if I may, it is all that scale for me. I was originally in favor of retaining the structure and working within it. But evidence has proven that to be a very difficult thing to think through. As far as it goes, in the period of time that I've been on council and the reports that I've seen for it, we are a small municipality. We have 35,000 at a stretch as the population, and we do have a real possibility of toppling the financial structure of this city if we get this wrong. So I appreciate the vision behind the site, but I am concerned about the scale.
Yeah, just on the report. So I went through the portal. The report that I focused on was the structural report by RJC and engineers. Mike Bond was the author of it. Mike Bond was here on November 26th after the open house. We walked through Andre and Emily, and he wasn't giving us any real indication that it's ready to go over. And in fact, he was sort of surprised it was hanging in as well as it has been. And one of the next steps is reading my recommendations is to retain specifically him because of his experience with the building and that he has the previous documentation to review it. That would be one of my first steps, because if he says it's no, we have to live with it. If he says it can handle it, because he said part two of it, not just how it is now, but can it handle those who are applying to it, Robert? And we're putting a lot of weight on that center column line, which originally was designed for a lot of weight with the 200-ton crane. And I'll tell you, if there wasn't a 200-ton crane in that building, she'd be gone by now, because you couldn't do what I'm proposing. And I was aware of that back in '95 when we were planning to repurpose it into a resort spa hotel. We were adding floors in the 70-foot bay. So that's the report that's given me confidence. And hearing Mikey, speaking to Mikey, and in fact, there's in the report, there's a letter from him saying, I can't say we're for it or that it will work without further analysis, but it's encouraging that it's such a robust building. So that's where I'm going. I know there's other things we can. Environmental, I spoke to Carol Mitchell the other day, a bit about that building or about another building. And again, we got to bring in a team like that, because for my proposals and even for the proposal plan B, we need to do a record site condition for where I'm proposing to put a pool. And you need to do one where you're planning to put the wine library, which is all sort of close to the same spot. So we're going to be doing, I think you will be doing a record site condition for the west end of the site. And then we know where we're at. Thing is, we don't know how much it's going to cost to do any of that, but we do have a good idea of cost within the building.
Councilor United.
Thank you, through the chair. My question is more on phase E, which is the police station.
Yes.
That was in it. Do you have any numbers regarding converting the YMCA to build the police station to today's standards? What we would be looking at?
The GTR building's enough, and you want me to take on the Y like I wanted to do, and I did some cursory review on it, because I'm looking at again the shell and then upgrades from there. What was encouraging with the Y is that there's one, if Scotiabank's going to cost the city 14 million, and if you can arrange with the Y to get it for 4, you have 10 million to start with. Because you didn't buy Scotiabank, you get another 2.4 from the taxes that would amortize a mortgage for 2.4 million. And there's a math exercise illustrated in one of my reports on how I show the math. I think, I forget, I was running a lower rate. I think it was $450 a square foot. I know police stations are more money. I want to find out more. I didn't have time to research the police because I haven't done a police station. But if you look, it's hard to believe that, with the Seagull build attack and the OPP, it's really doesn't look very expensive when you look at the build, right? So I want to understand all the parts of it, because as we all know, the first story in the basement of the Y is basically a bunker. And then there's ceiling height issues that I think might be a concern. But again, it's one of those things you have to get into it and work your problems as you come up against them. Something that I'd love to get into, that's a project on it. So obviously. But it's a great location with the proposed street changes. That intersection of Waterloo Downey. Duro, to say pick a name, simplified with what I'm proposing. When the police saw that, they're going, well, it's interesting, because they're always concerned about how quick we can get out of downtown. And the way that's set up, you don't have the double stop sign scenario, it's cleaner, you know, with controlled entrances. You can go down the Duro, St. Patrick out Erie, Huron, right up Waterloo to the north end. So it was a nice central spot to spread from. And also with police, the SWAT units based at headquarters, and being downtown, you're near two of the theaters, and you're like down Waterloo Street, you're at the next theater, Patterson. And the festival's not far away after that, so it's better with respect to that side of things. So this
Follow up, just from the perspective, those are great, you know, arguments of the pros and cons.
I wish I knew more, because
Yeah, no, but
I tried to interact with the
Yeah.
police, but
just from the cost perspective, you know, I've chatted with a couple of different forces that has the three stations, there's, you know, anywhere from, you know, 800 to well over 1,000, you know, and retrofitting a older building, some of the forces said it was a lot more than just building a new one, or having one that had structure and just kind of tweaking it a bit, right, where the Tenerife Boulevard was a data center was built, you know, for those types of that type of construction. But yeah, the piece of is that, you know, what is the cost, right? And the number that I heard a lot of years ago was 30-40 million, but that number is probably 10-15 years old. So that's where I was trying to find out what the cost would be to retrofit, modify, please, right? So even if we're losing that the taxation dollars, but just the cost is still the cost, right? That doesn't change.
I'm with you on that. And the beauty of the Y, other than the bunker portion, the rest is structural steel, which is exposed. And the structural steel is reinforced and boosted quite easily, because it's going to have to get post-disaster building as a police facility. And then the other thing is, well, what do we do with the old police station? That's the other side of the formula that has to be addressed wherever you go. But you know, there's other needs, and for the city, and hopefully the city basement using the basement possibly for IT and maybe some other services on the main floor, and that's if the courts stay there. So anyways, that is another topic, but you can see the connection between it and the GTR site, because money to the Y gives money from the Y into the GTR building. So again, the formula of 528.
Councilor Bean.
Thank you, the mayor. I have two thoughts. The first one being, it's been said already, but I'm gonna reiterate the way I see it is that without verified numbers by a professional third party, and I don't know if PCL would be considered a professional third party, not tied financially to it at all. And I would have to see that in writing with that level of detail, because I don't think as council we can evaluate it practically and see if this project is viable financially without seeing those numbers. So until we see that, it's just, I just think you just can't say, like, I saw all of your slides and your ideas, and I think they are beautiful, like it's inspiring. But to take that and say we're gonna build it, like I just would need the verified analysis of it financially. And I don't know if that, like, if you want, that's a separate thought.
To respond to that, PCL, in our discussions, it's not just a verbal, hey, Robert, yeah, the numbers work. I've asked them for a letter of opinion on the numbers, with an outline of the numbers. I believe they will be, I don't know what, I was expecting a letter based on a cleaned up spreadsheet produced by me and reviewed by them. And so here are the numbers, here's the letter saying the numbers work, won't work, you know, whatever. And that's to give to you, so you can say, okay, they're not too far off the mark, it's worth it. It's our turn now to double check her and work with everybody, not just Brits, everybody, you know, because a lot of community groups are in this. And what a great facility for the Y and the library and Stratford Arts and Cultural Collective all being in the same hallway, sharing facilities And it lends itself quite nicely to that, because you gotta look at what's the other side. That's what I'm saying, you have to look at plan B and take it to the level that plan A has taken us. And again, phase it if it's phased, so it doesn't cost us a lot of money up front, or, you know, that we can afford it. Again, back to Councilor McCabe's concern, of course, what Andre's saying in their reports and staff reports. So I'm with you. I know I wouldn't be going for it unless we knew the numbers too, and had to get this far to get there. So just again, like I said, Councilor McCabe, bear with me. Thank you. Follow up.
Sure, this is, the mayor's a separate topic, but I did have a phone conversation with the police, just asking about, first of all, we don't own the wife, so I know that we can't just make a decision.
Yeah.
Police there. But, I was left with the, impression that it is not an ideal facility for the police, and we can argue about it, they're not here to bring that part of it. But, that's supposed to make definitely better suits, because you can move in and be operating, there's not a massive renovation, so those are just the. That's more of a statement as to if the whole thing is depending on the police getting into the Y, I'm not certain that is a feasible alternative.
Just a comment on your comment. The key is timing and how. Like what puzzles me, and yes, the police need to move the facility. Absolutely agree, they're sort of here and there. And I believe that will make them causing some issues with operating the facility. I mentioned that in today's report. But where was it 2 years ago? Like when this ad hoc thing started, I didn't hear any of the police having an issue other than they needed space and they were going off site to manage their needs. So, and the problem with the Y is that you actually have to wait for the new Y to be built at the GTR site. If you go to the Y and put in the police station, you're looking at 4 to 5 years. But what it's doing is it's also allowing you to not drop all your money in at once. You can pace it out. Y or develop GTR, then develop the Y from the police later versus 2 things happening at the same time. There's the advantage of it. Like again, the police station, the roof's fine. You have the space. It's I don't know. I requested to speak with him. I spoke to Chief Skinner, just trying to get back and forth, but as you know, he's not there anymore. And it'd be good to talk to their consultants, but and to have a walk through it and understand the Y building, what's wrong with it. I do not know until I know. I tell them, trying to pitch the deal of using it. Until somebody tells me it can't work for X, Y, and Z, and you go, yeah, you got us. Yeah, I'm with you then, right?
Thank you, like I was just been told that it's not ideal, so from the start, and I'm sitting, if it's not ideal, then I don't think we need to move in that direction, but that's.
And an ideal is what's ideal, and can the ideal be fixed, because sometimes with the imagination can turn it around, right?
Anything further, Councilor Dolphin?
So, Chief, thank you. Is just I'm just interested to know about your collaboration and the collaboration with the city, or in collaboration with the government, and explain more detail about it.
Like collaboration between me and the city, or the city and everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, everybody.
Oh, again, I saw the corporation, development corporation, being grouped to work with everybody on it, not that corporation, like they have the mayor and all the councilors on the board. And, reviewing what's happening, because really, they are the developer. You own a development company through this development corporation, similar to the Economic Development Office. They're the development corporation for your land, farmland purchases, and extending it out to tenders and designing the industrial site. So it's a similar process. And the development corporation would retain a project manager to make it happen after you've done the due diligence and it works. So that's how I see the process. And again, you're always checking. Council will make a lot of the big calls, and their goal would be this is what we need, this is the planning and the pacing of it. Well, if we work financially with the city, that's how I see it coming together. It's because you need a staff are busy with everything else. This is a big project on its own.
Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate your time, Mayor.
At this time, we'll welcome Mr. Burdett. Welcome to Forest Shores Surgeon.
Thank you. Good evening. I will come right to the point. Your time is valuable. The existing railway structure is an asset worth millions, and it must not be squandered. It's a simple matter to comprehend the value of the foundation and the steel frame. It's higher and stronger than the common version of structures that are erected for shopping centers or factories. Within that structure, there are huge possibilities to accommodate a variety of functions, including services for residents, such as a new library, YMCA, performance space, as well as a substantial amount of parking inside the structure. It's that big. And on this subject, I have semi-expert status. My original education was in civil engineering before I decided to pursue a career as owner, editor of newspapers. But after I sold my newspapers to the Toronto Star, they asked me to be a columnist for the weekly that they were operating in Stratford at the time. So 25 years ago, yes, that's how long this thing's been going on, longer than that. 25 years ago, I delved deeply into learning about the assets on this site. I quickly learned that Lawrence Ryan can be difficult to deal with, but he was determined to do something to create a tax-paying commercial and residential development. But our mayor at the time was equally determined that he wasn't going to let Lawrence Ryan do anything. So sadly, the stalemate continued until Lawrence Ryan died, the mayor retired, and the city finally completed the long and expensive process of expropriation. That's all history, and we're moving on. But what can be learned from that history is that the steel structure has real value, and the city has already sunk a large investment into owning that. Now, not much has happened since the expropriation was finally completed, with one positive exception. An undisputed expert, Baroque, has volunteered his services to quantify the value of the structure and illustrate some feasible ways to achieve that value for the taxpayers. You know, there's an old saying that an expert is somebody from more than 40 miles away who wears a tie. In this case, the volunteer expert happens to be a lifelong resident of Stratford, whose practice as an architect has given him knowledge and insights that no outside consultant could ever come close to replicating. You don't have to agree with the details of the impressively drawn proposals that Robert Ritz has presented, but it is impossible to seriously dispute his authentication of the value of the structure and its potential to meet some of the needs of our citizens, while also including some tax-paying residential and commercial elements. Robert Ritz is not just another citizen with an opinion, and I think that was obvious from the book good questions that you've asked, the discussion that you just had. But I ask you to please, before this goes any farther, that you take a whole meeting with Mr. Ritz, take advantage of all of that time and effort that he's put into this, his true expert knowledge, someone who knows his city. So we're only 5 months away from the municipal election, and democratic principles demand that the current city council should not make any major irreversible decisions during this period. The election means the citizens will be really engaged. They will be paying attention like never before. and their participation in the overall process must be respected. So no matter what decision is eventually reached here, it will require a significant amount of public fundraising. For such a campaign to have any degree of success, citizens need to feel that they are being respected in the democratic process. So I'm going to argue that completing the proposed purchase of Scotiabank's industrial building is one such decision. It should not be made before the election. The future of the YMCA is crucial to this project. There is much wisdom in the concept that the city should pay the YMCA fair market value for their property, because that money will just be invested back into the new Y. Now, since my exit from owning newspapers, I have devoted my business attention to tourism and hotel development, management, and marketing. I was the founding president of One King West Hotel and Residence in one of the most valuable locations in this entire country. I also worked on the Caribbean island of Barbados for more than 10 years, where I did detailed analyses of more than 20 tourism development sites. On top of that, I also operate a single unit B&B in Stratford. So I'm plugged into tourism, and the one lesson I have learned is that tourists care about their safety. And tourism is the #1 industry in this community. Stratford Festival, of course. Now we know this Stratford's a very safe place, but tourists are still going to have a certain level of wariness. And one of the easiest ways to reassure them is to have the impression of a police presence. They're not looking for Trump's guns on the streets, but they would just like to feel like there are police at hand, ready to serve if they're needed. So our police do need new facilities, and the ideal location is that prominent corner where the YMCA is. The building itself will speak volumes to our citizens and for our visitors. There will be the frequent presence of police patrols going out and returning from their duties in the city and in St. Mary's and Perth South. But if you proceed with expensive plans for a new police headquarters in the industrial zone, you'll be on a street that tourists will hardly ever see. So we will not get the benefit of that police presence that will make our visitors feel truly secure. So please keep police presence in the city center to support our citizens and our #1 industry. So that is one decision that I ask you as a taxpayer and someone who knows an awful lot about tourists, who don't make that decision, at least not before the election. Thank you. Happy to take any questions. I'm not an expert. I don't expect you want to pick my brain about the technicalities. So
Questions from council? Go ahead, Councilor Burbank.
Thank you, through the chair. Thanks for your presentation, and I agree with you that it is important to have a police presence downtown. Whether it needs to be headquarters or not is I guess debatable. I just wanted to point out though that I think maybe the numbers are a little wrong as far as what the biggest industry in Stratford is. I think that the festival and the tourism industry is about 25%-ish, and our manufacturing is about 60%.
yes,
So
I mean,
just
single industry. You know, we have a good manufacturing base, but there's no single company that matches what tourism.
So that's tourism, which is a whole bunch of businesses as well as the Stratford Festival. So it's also an industry built of a bunch of different businesses. So I'm just pointing out that that maybe there was a little inaccuracy to say that tourism was our number one industry. That's all.
Any other comments? And thank you for that correction. Other comments? Thank you very much for your presentation. I'll next welcome Jane Marie Mitchell. Whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Mr. Mayor, councillors, staff, and members of the public, thank you for the opportunity to speak today about our beloved GTR site. Money seems to be the largest factor in this decision, so I have a few suggestions and comments to think about. I want to remind everyone first of the vision and guiding principles that our great volunteers at the ad hoc committee for the GTR decided to work towards from the beginning for civic purposes as stated in the expropriation agreement. Some of the principles include long-term sustainability development, net zero, better than net zero, financially responsible now and over time, design for the future, a phased approach, preserve the history, cohesive community that connects, promote community wellness and health, a place where everyone is safe and welcome, responds to the needs of the current and future community, and community diversity. Those are a few of the guiding principles. Some of the groups wanting space in the GTR building are the Stratford Arts and Culture Collective, Stratford Lakeside Active Adults Association, ShelterLink, Stratford Library, a daycare, and the YMCA. Picture the present options for the combined library at YMYWCA for up to an estimated $65 million. The very first YMCA in Stratford was on Downing and St. Patrick's Streets. After 60 years, it was considered to be at the end of life, and it was demolished in May of 1967. The current Y was built and has outlived its usefulness for the Y's needs. So it's time for a new building. I believe it is time to think longer term for these investments and perhaps build a little bigger than we think we anticipate needing for a longer life for our buildings. The library building is actually 123 years old this year and demonstrates that buildings can last and be useful for long periods, even though the function may change. We need to think longer term, like they do in Europe, as their buildings seem to last for a very long time. We need to build buildings that are adaptable to the fast-paced, ever-changing technology and uses. So less small enclosed spaces, more adaptable spaces that can be small or large, that may suit many different uses for many different reasons. Adaptability is the key component when considering future buildings. So we have the library and the Y behind the Y, perhaps. And then we want to consider a senior center that might be over in this side of the site. And perhaps opposite to the bus station. So that's perhaps $65 million and $35 million and $65 million for the library and Y. Then there are other groups that want to be a part of the visions of the ad hoc committee that would like to have another building for members of the public. And you keep adding to it. And it'll add to the cost of buildings on the site. But by the time you get all that space for all those groups that are interested, it makes more sense just to put them all in one space. They can, in the larger space, they can share operating costs for temperature control, etc. Maintaining and upkeep of necessary systems, security staff, cleaning and upkeep costs, washrooms and kitchen spaces can be shared and maybe decreased, which would be a significant drop in costs for the future of all the tenants. The advantages of being together would include many of the guiding principles, like creating intergenerational opportunities, promoting lively, inclusive interaction, and being economical for the city in the long term. Also, with the 925 parking spots, this also helps to address parking problems in the downtown district, which they're experiencing now and will in the future. The main point here is that by the time you finish this site with separate buildings all over, the cost will be comparable to building inside the current structure, preserving the health and making way for the future of this transformational concept. Preserving history was also another one of the principles. Right now, you're not comparing apples to apples. You are considering one complex of buildings. Also not included, which needs consideration, is government funds. They're not included, as well as donations from citizens that are well known by Dean Robinson to punch above their weight and will come through with extraordinary performances in quite a variety of efforts, not unlike the Rotary. I was out there the other day and looked at the signs of how many people donated money. Using the revenue models that Richard didn't really talk, or Robert didn't talk about, but will, can raise a lot of the needed revenue and allow for a suggested phased approach to work and to help the projects to be financially sustainable as the work continues. This concept is meant to be used as a starting point to provide the community investments for the people of Stratford, with the project manager to develop a site that is worthy of the guiding principles and all our hopes to make a real transformative generational community investment and utilize the building for at least another 7 generations, rather than replacing buildings every 60 years. I ask that due diligence be done on Robert Gritz's concept and the entire site, so that a true financial and community comparison can be done and considered before jumping in on part of the plan and not including plans and costs for the whole 18 acres. Thank you for hearing my voice.
From council. Thank you very much. Turning to your agenda, I'll next call on Leslie Walker Fitzpatrick for her presentation. Welcome whenever you're ready.
Richmond, council, staff, and citizens, thank you for hearing my voice. Strong roots nurturing a visionary future. As a high school student in the library area, I knew even before visiting Stratford that there was something very special about this city, that there was a kind of magic. I took a bus ride, as many students over the years did, to see a Shakespearean play, walk beside the river with floating swans, have lunch at a picnic table under the willows. I understood that Stratford was unusual and unique. I did not foresee my future as a Stratford resident at that time, but after 37 years living here, this is the longest home of my life. And I have volunteered my time and effort over the years to protect certain aspects of the city. I joined so many past and present citizens who have worked to protect and strengthen this city's character and ensure a bright future for Stratford. As a student, I walked the river because of the efforts of Tom Ford. I watched a professional play because of Tom Patterson. And I'm speaking to you today because of all the citizens who stopped the demolition of our beautiful city hall. But something about Stratford has inspired so many citizens over generations to fight for the city to be the best that it can be. And today, we live in this rare and beautiful community. Architect Robert Ritz deserves the deep respect and appreciation of Stratford citizens and council for the amazing work he has given to the city in envisioning the best that a rebirth of the Grand Trunk building and grounds can be. The plan, inspirational, community-oriented, beautiful, respectful of heritage, laid out in well-conceived, responsible steps. Mr. Ritz has donated a great amount of time and resources, as well as his expertise, to provide council and Stratford City citizens with a very practical roadmap to the development of our heritage building and site. He proposes, instead of a for-profit developer not based in Stratford, a competent project manager to be hired to guide and oversee the development of the GTR. This will, of course, save the profit, the money that developers would want to make to justify their efforts. Mr. Ritz's plan provides for generating money as the project develops to help reduce costs. This wonderful plan is conceived as a new heart for Stratford to meet the needs of the citizens, to allow growth into the future and to celebrate Stratford's amazing heritage. Well, Cynthia Venables and I researched and wrote the statement of heritage significance on the GTR CNR repair shops under the Ontario Heritage Act, Regulation 1006. It more than fulfilled the requirements in all three categories as an important heritage site. A few excerpts from this report. Under category 1, design and physical value. Quotes, a rare and extraordinary industrial site, an exceptional example of its kind. There are very few structures of this type and purpose in Canada. The design created a dynamic interior landscape and is an example of a seminal advance in industrial modern architecture. The repair shops represent a high level of creative engineering achievement in design, planning, response to developing technology. It is a very significant because it represents over a century of Canada's early industrial era and railway heritage. Category 2, historical value. Profoundly shaped the development of Stratford and endowed the community with rapid growth and massive employment. It was the industrial heartbeat of Stratford for over 100 years. By 1949, the largest motive repair facility in the entire CNR. In 1890, the first machinist union was formed in Stratford. And in 1920, the Federated Crafts Union. Many families had multiple generations working in the repair shops, including Tom Patterson, whose dream to create a Shakespeare festival was directly related to the changing economic situation as diesel repairs seen. The GTR CNR shops were an important factor in the social and cultural development of Stratford and provided a unique sense of identity and place. The repair shops provide us with a wealth of information, understanding, and living history site of what Canada was and how our country was shaped. Category 3, contextual value. The huge GTR repair shops are a unique presence and landmark in Stratford, physically, historically, and culturally. They are deeply linked to the historical development of the community, the province, and the country. Located close to the downtown core of the community and had a major impact on the location and organization of developing neighborhoods, both residential and commercial. Stratford has been railroad hub and remains Stratford Festival, a community of national significance with a definite character that has allowed it to punch well above its weight, dream large, and reject poor planning initiatives. The repair shops provide a fertile time capsule by which a community and a country can understand the past in order to grow into a strong future. Stratford's history, Canada's history, deserves the vision for the GTR that Robert Ritz has so well defined in his wise, generous, and extensive plans. Unique Stratford must punch above its weight once again. When I first walked into the GTR, I felt a sense of power and soaring space, a reflection of the optimism of a young Canada that did not judge the viability of a project solely by cost analysis, but by dream of a railroad link right across the country. Well, this must have sounded audacious, financially impossible, even irresponsible to some. To follow the dream and not be stopped by numbers on a page, but see true value. Follow the vision of what could be, what should be, the best that could be. Now, in this era of shifting global directions and priorities, our country must redefine herself to build a renewed and strong Canada. Well, Stratford has done this in the past. Now we can do it again. In the locally created adaptive redevelopment at the heart of Stratford, the GTR, as elucidated in the GTR Plan A, given to Stratford by Robert Ritz. We all know that life-supporting changes must come to our planet from the old industrial paradigms of commerce, industry, and a polluting past. We must envision and develop enlightened methods, in restoration methods, in community-centered plans, and environmental responsibility. There is a bright precedent in the French city of Arles, where they have a highly successful redevelopment of their downtown repair shops as Luma Arles. 1 minute. Building on the strengths of the past, using the talent, ingenuity, dreams of artists and visionaries of our present, Stratford can be a force for developing better ways into a healthy future. Indeed, according to the Borgle report, paid for by the city, indeed the vision of Stratford is national and creative. The GTR can be a place of community, history, discovery, visioning, teaching, researching, manufacturing, commerce, culture, recreation, tourism, and especially downtown living. Well, at this point, Stratford's current status as a creative and visionary city has tremendous potential to anchor and strengthen our downtown core, to attract residents and visitors at a time when sprawl is surrounding and threatening our downtown. According to the Borgle report, in the conclusions, page 26, complete demolition and mitigation of the site will be costly and would not preserve the heritage values, nor take advantage of some of the potential opportunities that the site presents. We must celebrate and respect the skills, the competence of past citizens who bequeathed to us the city that we enjoy today. Our inheritance comes from all those lives. And we inherited the uniqueness of Stratford from our past citizens. We celebrate our past, give respect to our early citizens with a visionary plan to bring the GTR into a healthy community-oriented future. The best path forward for Stratford is to adopt and follow Plan A for the GTR as envisioned and delivered by Robert Ritz, Stratford-born architect. After all the years, bad decisions, delays, money thrown away on outside experts, it's made the obvious best choice and put our weight behind the GTR Plan A developed by Robert Ritz. Full steam ahead. Finally.
Council Warner, go ahead, please.
So, Chair, Katie, thank you. This historic item in giving us lots of information. Really appreciate you. It is one of the biggest huge project for us. The biggest for Stratford for county. We as community or as councillor, we are going to build the community is your voice, right? It's very important for us. The time so much we don't absolutely we just think about consider and we come to it. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next time I'll call Sharon Collingwood for her delegation. Welcome, and whenever you're ready.
Mayor Ritzma and members of council, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I want to start by stepping back a bit from Stratford to look at the national picture. According to the latest climate executive summary, Canadians have not walked away from climate action, even in the middle of an affordability crisis. 7 in 10 say they feel pride in Canada becoming a renewable energy superpower, and roughly 2/3 want political leaders keep their promises and take more action on climate change. About 7 in 10 agree that Canada should regulate the polluters causing it. 3/4 are concerned about climate change and believe future generations will be harmed, but the same proportion remain optimistic that it is still possible to reverse its consequences. Climate may not always top the list of daily concerns, but the expectations of leadership has not gone away. And that expectation lands directly on municipalities. Local governments decide how land is used, what gets built, how people move, and how public money is invested. Stratford has declared a climate emergency and adopted a community climate action plan that commits us to cutting emissions and accelerating a clean energy transition. On that basis, major development decisions are not neutral, they are climate decisions. The Grand Trunk site is a test of whether those commitments mean anything in practice. Your choice of this building, demolish and rebuild or adapt and reuse, will either advance Stratford's climate goals or set them back. The city's own Grand Trunk Materials call this a generational asset and commit the site to sustainability, fiscal responsibility, and movement towards net zero emissions. Those are not vague aspirations. They are standards council has already adopted. The question tonight is whether you will apply them rigorously to the options in front of you. Architect Robert Ritz's adaptive reuse proposal does that. It treats the existing Grand Trunk structure as a solution, retaining the historic superstructure and turning it into a mixed civic hub with space for the YMCA, the library, community users, housing, By reusing the building, this concept avoids the very high environmental cost of demolition and the carbon intensive new materials required to replace what you tear down. From an embodied carbon perspective, this is pivotal. The National Trust for Canada and other experts are clear. The greenest building is usually the one that already exists because of the carbon locked into it, bricks, concrete, and steel. At the Grand Trunk, that existing industrial frame is a huge bank of embodied carbon that you either keep working for Stratford or destroy and have to replace at great climate costs. Adaptive reuse keeps that carbon in service. Demolition turns it into waste and additional emissions. Fritz's concept also addresses operational emissions and land use impacts. Rooftop solar and low carbon systems align with your stated goal of using leading technologies to reach net zero on this site. Clustering major civic functions in a walkable downtown adjacent location supports transit, walking and cycling, and using the ground floor's volume for parking and shared amenities reduces pressure for more surface lots and more asphalt. So this is not just a heritage preference, it is a climate and land use strategy that lines up with Stratford's community action plan and with the Grand Trunk vision your own documents describe. The demolition and new build path points the other way, toward higher embodied emissions, more waste, and a less compact, less efficient urban form. We also know what it looks like when we ignore this reality. Avon Crest, Stratford's first public hospital, was demolished in 2023, despite strong community advocacy and national concern. Members of the Safe Avon Crest Committee calculated that the embodied carbon in its 247,000 bricks alone amounted to over 131 kilograms of carbon. Massive emissions locked into a sound structure. The National Trust put Avon Crest on its endangered places list. Warnings that demolition would release massive amounts of embedded carbon and calling for stronger policies to prevent this kind of waste. Yet the building came down, and much of the site is now surface parking with no clear replacement in sight. That is a cautionary tale for Stratford. Once you demolish a major historic structure, you cannot undo it, and the climate cost is permanent. With the Grand Trunk, Council has a chance to make a different choice, to keep and reuse a major historic building, protect the carbon already invested in it, and show that Stratford takes its climate commitments seriously. I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this project, particularly over the past few months. I sincerely admire the determination this council has shown in doggedly working towards a solution to a problem that many believe has been left far too long. I encourage you, though, to remember that climate change is not a side issue here. It is central to what you decide. My request is straightforward. One, the council explicitly evaluate every Grand Trunk option against Stratford's climate action commitments and the Grand Trunk guiding principle of using sustainability measures and technologies to reach net zero emissions. Number two, that you direct staff and partners to give full, serious consideration to adaptive reuse proposals, including Mr. Ritz's, that retain the existing superstructure, minimize demolition, and maximize both embodied carbon savings and operational carbon reductions. And number three, that you refuse to lock in any course of action that would demolish the Grand Trunk building before adaptive reuse options have been rigorously tested against your own environmental and fiscal objectives. Canadians still care about climate change and expect their leaders to act. Stratford has said it is committed to a low carbon future. The Grand Trunk is exactly the kind of once-in-a-generation site where those words must become real choices. I urge you to choose the path that reuses what we have, lowers emissions, and leaves future council and future generations with a landmark they can be proud of. And thank you for your time. Thank you for weighing the environmental consequences of any decisions for the Grand Trunk.
Thank you. Any questions at this time? Thank you, Sherry. Next, I'll invite Sheila Clark forward for her presentation.
Good evening.
Good evening and welcome.
You are all going to wish I had a mic. I will wish it too. I am Sheila Clark, a resident of Stratford. Thank you for this opportunity. I have worked in many buildings in my lifetime without any tradition or grace. I love architecture and trains. I've traveled on many in this world and admired that element of the foundations of Stratford. I do not pretend to be an expert builder or planner, but I would like to share observations about the GTR plan posed by Mr. Ritz. I appreciate the design component. It has character and pizzazz. I love the exposed trusses. I love the glass and the light that floods the building. I would hope that would be bird-friendly glass, as at the Tom Patterson. Windows kill millions of birds in Ontario every year during migration. I love the central concourse, enabling conversations among users of the facilities. I would hope there would be a small coffee bar as well, as I've seen in other joint facilities, all of which include libraries with active components such as the Y. Real opportunities for real conversations instead of social media. I have also observed shared performance spaces in many of those joint facilities. Brilliant. I admire the vision for future solar panels. It is past time for us to adopt renewable energy. It's cheaper, more efficient, and much less harmful than dependence on fossil fuel. Most of all, as you may have guessed, I love the train. That is a wonderful salute to our history. I have absolutely no doubt that locals and visitors would love to marvel at 218 with nearby exhibits to tell the story of the incredible 200-ton lifting crane that was so important in the Grand Trunk locomotive repair shop. That concept truly provides imagination and history in the design. With the elements that serve the people of Stratford in one amazing structure, the Y, the library, and other essential services, it would be a wonderful heartbeat of the city. It would be a structure that we could all participate in creating as a community. It would be ours. Not the creation of a come from away developer. Attendant with tremendous carbon cost of demolition. You know, once before in Stratford's history, we had a project that we all worked on together in the community. It was ours. It was a tent and the Shakespeare Festival. It has served us very well. Thank you.
Wow.
You know, like questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I'm going to invite Stephen Landers forward. Good evening and welcome whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Commissioner and Council. I'll be really quick. I haven't got any prepared remarks, but I didn't really have time. There's a few questions. One, why are we considering buying the Bank Nova Scotia building when we could move the police into this GTR building? I would like to see as much as possible, as close as possible, an estimate of destroying the GTR and saving mediation as opposed to the cost of rehabilitating. It's not opposition to, I just think that for people to make a wise decision, we should have those costs available as close as possible. And realizing that no estimate ever comes in way you hold. There's always something. There's something with the structure. There's something with the site. But we should have those costs. Another thing I'm concerned about. They're talking about moving the library, and I understand the limitations of the old library building. Very poor parking. The space is crowded now with the population. But I don't want to see us lose a Carnegie Library building. Has anybody decided what they're going to do with that? The library does move the structure. We should consider that as well. You keep all of those costs and alternatives open to us. So when if we have maybe a referendum this December, people will have the full facts and they can decide what they should be doing. And the alternatives are all presented with the cost as close as possible. Those are the one comments I have to make. It was a very quick thing. I was considering that I haven't heard anybody talk about the old building yet. I'd like to the old library yet. I'd like to consider it as well. So that's it.
Questions for us?
Thank you,
Stephen.
Well, may I make a side comment?
Certainly.
I'm sure Mr. Ritzman's presentation was excellent. I'm sure the questions were excellent. But that's a statement of faith. I couldn't hear anything where I was. So maybe we should, before we spend any money, we should maybe improve the audio around.
That is in the works. Thank you. Mr. Landers. And next we'll have Miss Tatiana Palavinsa. Thank you for helping me with that. Thank you and welcome whenever you're ready.
No, it's non-stop. All the representatives of this wonderful city, and the council. I thank you for letting me speak on this matter. I came to Canada originally running away from Soviet Union in 1989. And when I come to Canada, I discovered this wonderful miracle words. Start from letter R, reduce, reuse, recycle. And ever since I was carrying this method with me everywhere I go. Why I'm mentioning this, because I would like to strongly suggest, as many people here who speak before me, that it is very important to save the building, not to demolish it. For community purposes, for historical purposes, and for atmosphere, for environment. Thank you. I am here second time in Canada, and I'm here only for 2 years. I previously lived in Denmark in Sweden, so I'm still a bit Swedish. And I will appreciate it sometimes if I start with words, it helps me. I listened to all the previous people, and it was very inspiring. Previously, I lived in Holland, Norfolk, and I had an art school, which was slowly developing into an Institute for Healing and Performing Arts. And there was dance and music and art classes. And when I hear the story about theater, it's very interesting and exciting for me. Although we have 4 theaters here, and I believe that this building is big, huge enough for people all people to bring their dreams together in win-win situation and have this building very well, like reflects in a way of transformation, that it could be transformed from one thing to another. Like people mentioned that stage and chairs could be cleared up and something else could be done. When I come to Stratford, but I want to bring your attention a bit away from cultural theater. And when I come to Stratford and I saw this building, what I got inspired about, and with the second passion is, I was also working in Canada as a gymnastic coach, artistic gymnastic, sport gymnastic, and trampoline. When I was in Ukraine for several years, previously in 2000, I learned from the best gym and best people out there a new modality called parkour. And I was passionate about it, following the English model to develop parkour for seniors. I am a senior myself, and in England, they calculated that it's much cheaper to teach seniors parkour, which would be properly fall or learn to prevent falling at all and develop certain stability in the body, which would prevent problems with health, then do hip surgeries and everything that follows with it. And so I had a broken back before, and I used parkour to rehabilitate my back. And as a side effect of this, I developed a program for women, to be for men as well. But because of the childbirth, women have more need of it, because everything in our kidneys and everything in our stomach is starting to move down with the age of the childbirth. So I developed a program which uses a trampoline and is capable to lift everything up. I was working on that program in Ukraine, and it's few great results. Also, I have another program for that was the trampoline program, and the program with parkour is I already mentioned, which would reduce hip surgeries and follow progress in time. I also wanted to bring your attention to that this building is transformed into a trampoline and parkour facility very quickly and in a very low cost. Like I was working in the Kiev in several facilities. I haven't done studies about it yet because I just had very short notice finding out about the meeting. But in Ukraine and some other European countries, some old places like that was transformed very cheaply, very quickly. From what I understand, the transformation could be done in like 3 to 5 months. And children, teenagers, many of you have children, grandchildren, grandchildren, and this is our future. So we should be thinking about that as well. Plus, the parkour and trampoline facility could be transformed very easily into something else. The trampolines we used all was movable and foldable. Some of them was on the wheels, which could be taken to the park, for example, and have exhibition and show it to the people that they could try out and see what it's all about. And the most important thing, there is many art facilities, and I'm very happy about it because this is one of the passions. But when I come to Stratford, I realize there is no gym club here. There is a tiny one in St. Mary. I lived in Orangeville before, and Orangeville is approximately the same size and the same amount of people, and they have a huge gym facility. So this is basically, and I believe that all these presentations would be working together and have a win-win situation, starting from little and developing next and next. And on the end of it, like the way I see the whole building, it was very interesting presentation to see in the pictures. And perhaps we are not as rich as some of those Mississauga and Fairland and Toronto places. I used to work at Fairland Gym Club, and I know the city, it's huge. So, but if we start small and go step by step, we could build up and have the way I see it is this see-through structure around it, which could be a winter botanical garden for people to go, and all of that really bring money into the budget of the city and into the tourism, because the facility could be used for, as was mentioned, competitions, for parkour competitions, for gymnastic competitions, for cheerleader competitions, for dance competitions, for theater, and many other things. And I don't have a team yet. I am a member of international group, but we'll be working on maybe work to add Canada to that group. But if anybody is passionate and interested about what I have to say, I would be very happy to create a group with this project that I'm proposing.
Any questions or comments from Councilor Dolphin?
Chairman, thank you. In the presentation, I think we have a very good experience in this interaction and in training. I think so maybe if we can work with a partner with this sometimes, it's a good idea, maybe for future, right? It's a good idea, I think so. But very good asset, maybe who can contact you maybe soon.
Thank you, Councilor Dolphin. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation. At this time, I'll invite Julia Schneider forward for her delegation. Welcome.
Here. Some Stratford citizens. I feel humbled and full of admiration for all of my fellow presenters and responsibilities. My name is Julia Schneider, and I'm here tonight to talk about GTR 70 proposals, a special focus on Robert Ritz from a personal point of view. I brought with me 2 plates. One was City Hall, founded in, built in 1898. The other is the County of Perth, founded in 1853. There is one obvious connection between the two, although you can't see it on the plate, obviously. If you step outside and look at the front of this building, you will see there's a logo built in the stone, and that logo is out of Birmingham. The top right-hand corner of this logo is a picture of a train engine. The railway and its shops have been central to Stratford for a long time. My grandfather worked there, but that was a long time ago. Since the shops closed in the early 1950s, their imposing structures have been a focal point of downtown Stratford, but always as a past and potential glory. For years, they have stood empty as development around them has expanded, crying out for an architect and thinker capable of designing with an eye to the past, the future, and present day. I first became aware of Robert Ritz's interest and insights about shops after a movie about them presented by Stratford writer, historian Dean Robinson, at the Arden Park Hotel in 2015. At that time, Ritz said that demolishing the shops would be like burning the down album. Since then, there has been much said about the GTR site and much interest in it by citizens. The most impressive, all-inclusive, and thus satisfying ideas about its development have come from Robert Ritz, who has been an architect in Stratford since 1986, and who understands the significance and technical aspects of what he is talking about, or finds out about them. At his 2 talks, the first in late 2025, and the second more recently, he has revealed how his proposal design can make Stratford's downtown cohesive and accessible, again, to Stratford citizens looking for a valued center to their community and its service. It includes a wide, much needed addition to the library, parking, housing, and much more, all near the transit hub that was moved close to it from City Hall a few years ago. And there are also multiple other access points as well. He has done this in a way that obviates the major contamination problem the demolition of the structure caused in a remarkably environmentally sensitive and intelligent way. Stratford can't build a railway museum like the one in Winnipeg on the GTR site, but it can, with Robert Ritz's design, do something even better. It can create a living and permanent center for Stratford citizens that will make its memory shine for all to see and enjoy. Thank you.
Any questions or comments at this time from council? Thank you very much, Julie. Appreciate it. That concludes our delegations, and I'll turn it back to the clerk at this time.
For you, your worship, as noted on the agenda, there is a staff recommendation that the report titled Grand Trunk Renewal Project Workshop Series Update and April 27th report introduction to recommendations be received for information.
And that's moved by Councilor Briscoe, seconded by Councilor Wardolph. Any discussion? See none, all in favor? Opposed to any, that's unanimously carried.
Item 5 is the confirmatory bylaw requires first and second reading and third and final reading.
Mover for first and second, moved by Counselor Bean, second by Counselor Burback. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed to any, that's unanimous. Carried and third and final. Counselor Bean will move, second by Counselor Nigel. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed to any, that's unanimously carried. And before I adjourn, I thank staff, council, and especially our residents, public, for being here tonight. Presenting your thoughts, certainly are appreciated. So having said that, I'll motion to adjourn. Councillor Henderson will move, seconded by Councillor McCabe, thank you. All in favor? And any opposed? None opposed, and we are adjourned, thank you.